Can you explain the confusion around the $6 billion to Iran? I think the biggest confusion right now is not did this money go where it was supposed to or something like that. I think people misunderstand what the $6 billion is and how it was held. Okay, so how this works is there are different types of aid, there's different types of money, okay? So one thing to keep in mind is that I think people misunderstand how funds are done and how they're appropriated, okay? So let's talk about the $6 billion. Okay, so like for example, when you hear that an additional $50 billion in military aid is authorized to, let's say, Ukraine, right? We hear $50 billion, and some people think that is $50 billion in cash, put on a pallet, right, and sent over to Ukraine, and it ends up in coke-filled Eastern European parties from executives or something. I don't know what everybody believes. But that's not generally how it works. Oftentimes it's $50 billion in equipment, right? Or in aid that could be sent as, tanks or helicopters, which is still money because the U.S. taxpayer is going to have to fund the replacement and the new building and the defense budget. So it's not like it's just cash being sent over. I'm sure there's some cases. Now, a lot of people are hearing about the $6 billion going to Iran, and did Iran use this money to fund the attack? I think there's a misunderstanding there. I'm not giving you any type of, the weak administration gave up this money and therefore they are complicit in this. And I'm also not going to sit here and play like, we shouldn't be doing this because we're meddling in international politics, which leads to creating more enemies. And then, there's a lot here. I just want to tell you guys how this works. $6 billion. Okay, so the U.S. did not give Iran $6 billion. Okay? We didn't send $6 billion to Iran. What happened was, just like with Russia, okay, Russia, they have money in other countries' banks or in offshore accounts. Why? They hold reserves of cash, right? So, for example, the United States has a reserve of cash that they might have as a swap with, let's say, China, or there might be reserves in gold, or there might be reserves. Because if you want to, for example, if the Chinese government wants to buy oil, they have to do it in dollars. Well, every time they want to buy oil, they can't just go, hey, U.S., can you exchange some dollars for some won here? No, they keep a level of reserves, right? So you keep a level of reserves of other currencies. And on top of that, you also have money that's in accounts if you want to purchase things, right? Imports, exports, having money in reserves for diplomatic reasons. There's a lot of reasons why a government would have money. But remember, money is not this idea of there's pallets of cash, right? A bank could have $100 billion in cash, but they might have $1 billion in actual cash, right? The rest of it's just money isn't real, guys, right? Debt, taxes, it's all just fucking numbers in a computer that somebody's, keeping track of, okay? It's not an actual hard asset. In this case, right, Iran had $6 billion in profits, right? Or in money that they had in offshore accounts. And it was frozen. So how do you freeze it, right? Well, just like with Russia, the United States calls up England, all right, and says, hey, any money that Russia has in your banking system, freeze it. Well, what's the UK going to do? They're not going to say no. That they're partners with the US. They don't want to mess up their relationship with the US by not doing it. So they say, okay, sure, right? So that's kind of how that works. And now those assets are frozen. The UK government won't allow, or the Bank of England will not allow the banks to transfer that money out. It's frozen. So in this case, Iran had $6 billion in money offshore that was frozen. Those assets were frozen. And so what they did is in return for the 5 Iranian American hostages, which this is the controversial part that I'm not going to get into, that I think most people are upset about. They're like, wait a second, why are we, doing it for these people but not these people? And why are we putting a price tag? I thought we didn't negotiate with terrorists. I know there's a lot of conversations there. But they said instead of paying $6 billion for the hostages, they only released the hold on Iran's money. So it was already Iran's money. They just got access to their money. So think of it like your bank account, right? Let's say you owe the money, the IRS money, and they freeze your savings account. You can't withdraw any money. It's still your money. It's still there. And then you are like, hey, listen, I'm holding my HOA hostage. until I get my money back. And they wait you out and finally like, all right, let the HOA go. We'll unfreeze your bank account. That's kind of an understanding of what happened here. All right. Now, that $6 billion was just released a week or 2 weeks ago. We talked about it during one of our morning calls. So a lot of people are making that connection saying, wait a second, did they in fact take that money and then transfer it over to Hamas to do this? Or did they already fund Hamas, wait for the money to clear so that way if the attacks happen, they get implicated, they've got access, they got their money back before it can be frozen again? That's the question that's going on right now. Okay, so I'm not going to go further. I could go a lot further with this. But just to answer your question, what is the big deal or what's the question about the $6 billion? That's the $6 billion. All right, so that answers your question about what is the $6 billion question, right? So we talked about this. Now, during not the last president, but the president before, there was another one where they actually sent pallets of cash over there in return for other things and part of a deal with the nuclear deal. So there's some people that are talking about that. That was done in the middle of the night without telling anybody. So there's some controversy there, but let's not talk about that. We want to talk about this individual situation and how this is in play and how it reflects and is in place with this situation currently going on, okay? Stocky, you missed the whole point of the U.S. having strict controls on when the money could be withdrawn. That wasn't the point. See, you're trying to be the main character right now, but I'm answering someone else's question about why are people talking about the $6 billion? That's the answer to his question. He just wanted to understand what is the $6 billion and why are people talking about it? Fair enough. Yeah. I'm not trying to be, I know I sound like a callous. I'm just saying, like, that's not what this whiteboard was about. Like, that's like if somebody says, hey, Stocky, why has Target sold off so much? Well, I could tell you about from the time that they were at their peak to now, and I could talk about all the effects, but I'm not going to talk about the last 10 years of retail numbers and inflation and consumer spending and all that other stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just trying to keep it in line here. Yeah, nobody freezes away from a currency. Think about it. $6 billion is nothing. And $6 billion in assets in a bank is not necessarily in dollars. It's just a amount of value, and how it is withdrawn or in what capacity that money was put in or taken out is where the value is. It's not like you have $6 billion in a bank and it's $6 billion US dollars. Maybe it's $6 billion worth US in exchange ratio or 6 billion yuan, but it's less in a foreign exchange conversion. Bitcoin fixes this. Why are you flexing so hard? Oh, you want me to flex? Is that what you want, baby? Okay, I'm jealous of your hairline. Lower middle class is so hot right now.